Good afternoon, Hughes Harth heroes. This is Mr. Harth, your inverse functions undo table operator here, and I am going to be giving you my first flipped lesson today. It is February 13, 2014, and we have Snagit being used in a MemeoPad as far as the software and tools I'm using to produce this first tool. Right here we have a diagram showing the graphical representation of an inverse function. If you remember, the graph of inverse functions are mirrors over the equation y equals x, and it's written like this, that the original function f of x or y, and then the inverse function is f to the negative 1 of x or y to the negative 1 of x. And so in class so far what we have been doing is stuff like this lesson from 2.8. we did this undo table, and we did this one in class. Here's one that we did not do in class, and so if you want to pause and take a look and read through this one, you can try this. This could be good for notes, but not really the purpose of this lecture, so I'm going to move on to the next page. This page was what we actually did during the last part of the lab, where we found out that the answer was 143 by building this very succinct and small table. Again, that's not the point of this lab. This lab is to take what this is, which is solving an equation, and solving for the inverse function. That is what the purpose of this flipped lesson is about. So I'm going to go to this problem, which was on the bottom of the sheet that I was just showing. Not all of you may have that sheet again, but here's the problem right here. And so if we look right in here, we'll see that we have an example. And I am going to start now by doing that example. So I'm going to start by saying that x, which is the result of some number, I'm going to add 3 to it. So if I'm going to build it, I'm going to add 3 and then multiply by negative 2 and then add 18, and finally I'm going to divide by 6. I just skipped over, but this is a different table than used before, because like I said, that this is going to be the Algebra 2 type version, and rather than working with a number of a result, I'm going to leave it as a variable. So in this case it's an x, and so if I build that function, if I take my x and were to build with plus 3, I would get x plus 3, and then simply I just start copying down. So I would have x plus 3. Oh, this was times by negative 2 here, by the way. And so that actually tells me right there, hey, it's times. Times and division is where you need to consider using parentheses. So times by negative 2 out in front. I'm going to copy that and do negative 2 times x plus 3 again, and add 18 to that. Finally, I'm going to take that and do negative 2 x plus 3, add 18 to it, and the final step to build it is to divide by 6. And so this right here is my function, otherwise known as y or f of x. And so if I were to do the undo or the inverse of that, again, this would be my y here, right? This is what I wind up with. If I knew my x, I'm going to wind up with a y. So if I were to undo each of these, we did this in class. Inverse undo of plus 3 is negative 3. Undoing of times by negative 2 is divide by negative 2. Add by 18, subtracting 18. Divide by 6 is times 6. And so if I'm going to do my inverse function, a shortcut with using this with the table is just to swap these. Instead of x being on top, x is going to be at the bottom, and then y is going to be up top. But it's not going to build the original function. I'm going to build the inverse function, so this is y to the negative 1, the inverse function. So let's take that. X times 6, well, that's 6x. 6x minus 18, well, that's 6x, and then minus 18. I'm going to copy that down. 6x minus 18. Divide by negative 2. Well, I'm just going to put that all over negative 2. So that's one big fraction. So again, that's 6x minus 18. Divide by negative 2, and then take that and subtract 3 from it. This right here, that's my inverse function. So my f to the negative 1 of x, otherwise known as y to the negative 1 of x, okay, or y to the negative 1 is the inverse function, is just this. Okay, so my inverse function, f to the negative 1 of x, is 6x minus 18 divided by a negative 2 minus 3 for this problem. Okay, where my original function is right here. There is some more that we can do with this. All of this stuff that is in here is dealing with exact numbers. So if I want to find the starting number where the final result is 15, well, that would mean that my final result is 15 here. My final result is 15 here, so I would need to find what x is, so I would pull it back. Well, another way of doing that is just knowing that my final result is 15, and so that would be, I think, here, and so I'd be able to put in 15 here and get my final exact. Then we'll talk about that a little bit more tomorrow in class. That may be like a little bit choke up here. So this is your first version. To kind of make this look a little bit better, let's see if I can get this to work correctly. If I were to highlight everything in here and then select this tool, it should hopefully recognize, and it didn't do that. So I'm not going to make that look like that. I'm going to leave that like that. If you can't read it, do your best. We'll talk about it in class. Hope you enjoyed, and with that, I am going to stop as long as I can figure out where the stop button is. All right, talk to you all on Friday. Bye.